Alright, so a couple years ago I got sent a set of wheel shields in order to do a video on them, and we did, except it was just a really sucky video. It was really more of our first initial impressions. We filmed it right over there next to that post where that green frog is now, and it was literally us talking about them for a minute. So we set up the wheels on this board so we could get in some riding and experience and some impressions to throw out, and then the board sort of disappeared for a while. Finally tracked it down, and now finally going to talk about them. Long overdue, but there we go. Alright, so let's start off by taking a look at the wheel shields themselves. So, here I've got them on the lovely Other Planet trucks with the matching green hanger. I've got them on this crazy Mars deck, which doesn't complement them at all. And I've got the yellow race formula wheels. There we go, that's the setup. It takes the large wheels. You can see these wheels are center set, so it has the room to take side set wheels or more offset wheels and the bigger lips and be just fine with that. The wheel shields themselves are made of aluminum, and I meant to ask, I never did. I don't know if this is an enamel paint or if it's powder coated or what. I'm gonna guess it's some sort of enamel paint, but it's a nice high gloss, durable paint. It's held up pretty well for several years. The one thing about the wheel shields that is disadvantageous, I don't know how to say that, about the way it's done, it's kind of, there's no really way around it, but they had to use special hardware because it attaches to the axle, and you know, axles aren't designed around having this extra space. Most axles don't have a lot of extra thread. Although the Gullwing Chargers, the Charger 2s, they've got a lot of extra thread. You could probably get away with normal hardware. But if you don't have those trucks or other trucks with longer threads, you have to keep track of this special, really thin hardware. And that's why I've got this little box that I emptied one time when I had the cold, and now it holds my hardware. The wheel shields also came with this really awesome skate tool. I love this. I don't know if you could buy these separately or what, or who supplies them to them. Don't know, but they're great. So let's take one of these off here so you can take a look at it. There we go. So how it works is, has a retaining nut that holds everything on, and then on the inside of the wheel shield itself, it's got these indexes, and these index on the nut that holds your wheel on. So you've got a nut holding the wheel on and a nut holding the wheel shield on. And the wheel shield has got these indexes on it, right? So it locks onto that nut. I think you could probably use the wheel shield to tighten and loosen your wheels if they weren't bolted to the wheel too. You have to tighten them pretty good, but they do not move, and they can support your weight perfectly fine. I mean, you can stand on it. There's no way that's going to be a problem. These things are really strong. If you take a look at how thick, I just climbed up on the table here. You can see how thick that is. This is pretty stuff. It's pretty tough. So as far as the execution and the build quality, you know, like it's got the cumbersome custom hardware, but that's something that can't be helped. Everything that they could have done and they should have done, they did. Except for, there is one thing. I do have one complaint. All right, so here's my complaint. They have to have this special nut to make this work, right? But they just go with a normal nut, just a little thin one. What they should have done is, this would have been a perfect opportunity to have an acorn nut that is painted the same color as the wheel shield, and you have this sweet little tiny hubcap thing. And that is a missed opportunity. They should do that if they are still able to make changes to the design at this point, because that would just be sweet. These things are deep enough where if you have extra thread, it'd be able to accept extra thread, and it would just finish the look. it would just top it off. It's the cherry on top. It's the acorn nut cherry on top of the wheel shields. So yeah, that's my one complaint about them as far as the execution goes. But what can you use them for? That's the main thing that people like to address with these things, because for most people they have no. Oh, by the way, this looks so cool. It looks like the board's just kind of like sliding or hovering away. I love that look. It's like, oh yeah, my board's just hovering, like a hoverboard. Anyway, so what's the practical use for these things? And you know, I like quirky things. I like making quirky things. I like writing quirky things. And my take on things is that, I mean, it doesn't have to appeal to everyone. If it's got a use for someone, then that's worthwhile, you know. Sometimes you just have to take things for what they're worth. And, you know, if it doesn't appeal to everyone, that doesn't mean it doesn't appeal to nobody. So my example is like the penny skate. I borrowed a penny skate, and when I wrote it, I was like, this is perfectly legitimate for what 99% of the people who have these use it for. And sure, you know, I would never take it down a hill and go bomb with it, but that's not what it's for. And you know what? These are not for everyone's setup. This is for people who can use them and for particular things. So let's talk about that. So we never made full use of the wheel shields, unfortunately, but that doesn't mean that I think that they couldn't be useful. The two purposes that I envision them being useful in is, first of all, they're both going to be more commuter-oriented setups. As you might imagine, having little fenders over your wheels could be quite useful if you have to commute and you're just doing short distances and you like to ride your board. And rain can be a problem for longboard commuters. And one of the things that rain will do on a longboard is make it kick up a lot of water onto your pants and stuff. So this is kind of a minor thing, but yeah, that is definitely an issue, and that's the easiest one to address. The other thing I think would be an excellent application for the wheel shields is, let's say you wanted to have like a dedicated commuter board that was really small, that you could carry around, fit in your backpack or on the back of your backpack, fit in your locker. So let's say you want to have bigger wheels because those roll better. Let's say you want to have it lower to the ground because then you can push better. It has to have a small board. So that's normally a pretty incompatible set of requirements. So let's say the board only goes to here, right? It's not this full length. The board goes to here. I have to stand on it really small like this. Nice small little board. It's dropped a little bit, so it's got to have these wheel cutouts. And you don't want to be jamming up with your feet. Let's say it's got big wheels, so the wheels stick out past the board a little bit. You're not going to hit them pushing like that. So if you're running what's normally a really cumbersome setup, but it works in order for getting around, then these could be super useful in order to make that happen a lot easier. And we have tried weird setups with your feet close to the wheels on boards with wheel cutouts, and it doesn't work. You have to have something to keep your feet off the wheels. Let me show you what we had. We came up with these designs right here. That one and this one here. These are part of the Project Freestyle. And what they are is they're boards that we were designed to have a full kicktail. So we wanted to design a board with full kicktail, but with the trucks we were working around at the time, you have to have wheel cutouts. So when we tried that, we were like, okay, full tail, wheel cutouts, doesn't work. Your feet and the wheels get way too happy with each other, and it just makes trouble. It just does not work. We tried to make it work. We end up having to go with these elaborate fiberglass molded wheel wells. These ones are huge. This is an earlier one. This is before we kind of had it figured out. But that's actually the reason we were initially interested in the wheel shields, was because of that project, which we were just finishing up when these first showed up. Really great. Like these, for that sort of application, where it's an unusual setup, those are definitely unusual setups. Your feet can definitely come in contact with the wheels. It's not like your normal everyday setup that's going to benefit from this. It's going to be, special things that are designed for particular reasons that they're going to be useful. The other one, where I can imagine this being useful, is in luge, right? So in street luge, what they used to have is they used to have this long bar, and your feet would be way back like this, and the wheels would be out there, right? But things changed. They figured it was a lot better to have more weight on the front truck, because weight on the front reduces speed wobbles. So, to get a more stable setup, you end up with the wheels more by your knees and by your thighs or your calves. And, well, if you're steering your street luge and you got your legs right there, you bet you want something to keep your clothes out of the wheels. So, I mean, that's a good place for the wheel shield too, potentially. Of course, though, then you only need two. Although, usually with luge, you have your head right up close to the wheels, like this. And you don't want to get too friendly with the wheel in that position either. So, there is definitely applications for the wheel shield. So they're not useless, it's just not typical everyday users who are going to benefit from them. So they were ragged on a lot back when after they had successfully launched the product. There's a bunch of kickback about who's ever going to use them, and there's people who are going to use them. So if you are one of those people, then I think they'll do you just fine. And then also, I think there could be some technical advantages to being able to put your weight directly on the axles. I think that's a really cool concept. I mean, there's got to be some sort of technical use for being able to do that. I don't know what it is, and probably isn't practical, but it's an interesting idea, being able to take your foot off the deck and set it on something else that isn't the deck and isn't the ground that's moving past you. It's like kind of cool. Anyway, so that's my spiel on the wheel shields. I think they are a very well made, well designed product. The appeal is not totally broad, and the only thing they could possibly benefit from would be acorn nuts. Longboard technology, over and out.